Thanks. So why is it important for that to occur? And one of the things I always coach my clients about is, if you want someone to give you patience and you want someone to give you flexibility, you have to do it too. And one of the challenges I find, one of the great challenges and things that kind of excites me from a teaching standpoint is when an incoming generation says to me, I have all these great ideas, I just need dad to get out of my way. Or I just need mom to step aside and let me be the president. And this person's 26 years old and 2 years out of college, and they're just so excited. They want things to happen quickly. And what we talk about is pacing. I use the word pacing. And that we have to understand the pacing of transition and gaining respect for one another, and also giving as much flexibility and patience as you want. So it's kind of a two-way street. Do you see that very much, Tom?
I do, and I think the biggest takeaway from this section is that that everyone needs to be patient and flexible and communicate almost excessively, right? Just really be open about what you're hoping for, what you need, what you see happening. And of course, we teach those skills in real time, but this idea that someone who's never retired before is going to be able to pick a date in the future and know exactly how it's going to feel as they get closer may require some process. And if we handle that with kindness, and take care of them so we aren't bashing their identity, then I think they may actually be able to transition more effectively. And of course, the patience with the next gen as they develop, right? There's a learning curve. And I've said this to more new president next gens. I don't know how many times I've said it so often. I say to the new president who's like 32, hey, you get a learning curve. Don't forget that. Everyone else has had a learning curve. You get a learning curve. And it's really important to understand that is they need to be able to step into it. I don't care how good the development is, they still need a learning curve because it's different when you're actually carrying the mantle of the responsibility. The other thing I think it's important to say here is that sometimes the issue of change gets problematic. Sometimes change is brought for change's sake, and it's tough to say that's one generation versus another, but when change for change's sake can be a way of reinforcing my identity as a change agent, or it could be my way of reinforcing my identity as a good leader who brings new ideas. But it also can be an opportunity to resist change just because it's change, and that's not helpful either. So if you're a now gen and the next gen's bringing some ideas, frame it as this learning opportunity. It's not necessarily an indictment of everything you've ever done in your life. And I can see the leading gen get a little defensive. Well, why does he want to change it? Don't they think I've done a good job? Yeah, they're trying to contribute, right? And so that's where some of the identity stuff, if you're not aware of it, can get confusing.
I think that's a great example, and I'll do a quick one where I was working with a family where the next generation really wanted to take leadership, and the struggle in that family was the owning generation wanted the next generation to act like owners when they weren't owners, and they were struggling with, the leading generation was saying they need to act like owners, and the next generation would say, but we're not owners, and every time we act like owners you get mad, so we can't win, right? So what happened was we coached them into reversing roles on a very large project, right? So they were implementing a new project, and the owning generation said, this is your project. You are in charge of it. I will be over here. And what happened out of that project, and it was a big project, it was a painful project, it was a software implementation in manufacturing, which is a lot, right? But what happened was every time they went to dad and said, will you do this? He said, no, you solve it. I'm over here if you're going to fall off the rail and the business is going to go under, but you do it. And so they got to feel the pressure of being in charge with him right next door. Does that make sense?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
He got to feel what it was like not to be in charge. And what happened is out of that developed a huge respect for the other's perspective. And that's what we're trying to cultivate over and over, right?
Yeah, you're right.
It was great. And really out of that came the idea that, hey, maybe we need an interim CEO between the generations while the incoming gets better at that and the outcoming can kind of go, right? So there are different ways to develop that perspective, but it was a great learning opportunity for everybody.
I'm aware of your story of how new possibilities emerge if we would be patient and flexible and just engage with each other. And I think that's a great illustration.
So that new CEO, they're really looking for that person to be a different kind of guide for the next generation so that there's new ways of doing things and new mentorships created. Have you seen that be really important in this work, Tom? Getting someone involved that's different than the leading generation to help the next generation form an identity?